And what's the most common cause for death?
Blood clots. We're seeing loads of people with unnatural blood clots, like white calamari inside them. The coroners won't talk about it. They just don't want to talk about it.
And what do you think they are?
I think it's a result of COVID vaccines. And it's been well documented by people far cleverer than me. And I've been shouting about it for years. But people just don't seem to want to acknowledge it. Mostly people like the coroners, most doctors, government ministers, they won't talk about it. They don't want to know. I've even been to the police station. They don't want to know. They won't even talk to me about it.
And what do these clots look like?
I've got some here if you want to see them.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it. Wow. So, all of these sort of calamari-looking clots,
yep,
you've taken them out of people's circulation system?
I've never, ever seen... I mean, I worked for the coroner for 7 years. I've never seen anything like it in anyone before. He's done 20-odd years. He's never seen anything like it before. And we're finding this now constantly inside people that have all been COVID vaccinated. So that's what we're seeing. So I reached out to my local coroner and kind of said, look, I'm really concerned. You know, we've got a young lad of 30 in. We've pulled out about half a pound of this crap out of him. I know you've post-mortemed him. What is it? You know, what is it? We've never seen it before. Do you need samples? Have you got samples? How can we help? You know, no reply at all, firstly, by the email. And I emailed because I wanted a paper trail, because I knew then what was happening. I took a phone call about 4 days later. It was from one of the girls in the office who doesn't work with bodies. They're in the office. And she said, well, we spoke to the pathologist. He said, don't worry. You can dispose of them. It's perfectly natural. It grows post-mortem. So what that means is basically they're saying that when you die, rubber grows throughout your arteries all of a sudden. And it's perfectly normal. Well, I can tell you, having done this job for 18 years, 7 years picking up bits out the road, that isn't normal. That isn't normal. And it's only, and every one of these people was COVID vaccinated. How do I know? Because I meet the family at the point of arrangement and I ask them, I say, was mum COVID vaccinated? And they say yes. And they tell me. And because the government made such a big thing about you must be vaccinated. If you don't, you're selfish, you're dangerous, you can't work, you can't travel. You're killing people if you don't. People are only too forthcoming then to tell you their vaccine status.
Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, August 26th, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. And so that was a coroner from the United Kingdom. Now, the blood clots he's referring to, I've been hearing about that from other coroners on social media, being interviewed, posting about it. So that is the thing. So what is it? And I think it's funny. He's like, yes, all of a sudden rubber grows in your circulatory system. So, okay, you got to understand that when you normally get, like, let's say a flu shot or something like that, it's an antigen shot, okay? It thinks your body's infected, so you produce antibodies, okay? In this particular case, in the mRNA shots for COVID, what it does is it causes your body, parts of your body, to produce the spike protein identically, okay, as what the actual spike protein is on the virus itself. And it is once there is a certain amount of spike proteins, going through your system, that triggers the immune response for COVID. So you're giving yourself COVID to prevent yourself from getting COVID. And because it is causing your body to produce this, that is the gene therapy, the DNA manipulation that I believe is causing the blood clots. I don't know that for sure, but that's what my gut is telling me on everything I've read and seen. Okay? Now that can be. So, you know, when you factor in everything else, okay, you know, neurological problems, vertigo issues going around, the turbo cancers, the circulatory issues, right? Because the spike protein is attacking it and you're manipulating your RNA. And the majority of the groups out there never needed the shot. Healthy younger people don't. It's like when the child gets infected with something. That's why they're sick. You see little kids are running noses. It's the first time their body's been exposed to it. So as it becomes an adult and acquires that, you know, that T-cell memory, etc., you are better. You don't get as sick when you're an adult. And inversely, when you're older, now your body's in decline, you become more susceptible. So if you were like 40 and healthy and you were exposed to COVID, for the most part, you were fine. Okay? It was just people who were experiencing the introduction of a new virus for the first time. Okay? So what is he saying? He points out that it's obvious the government pushed it and the liability. Now here in the United States as well, where they pushed it with all these things, you have to remember that, there was Operation Warp Speed in the contract, okay, that had these criteria. Well, the COVID shot didn't hit any of these criteria. And considering the government, the liability that would open up and everything if they dug deep into it. That's why they're being instructed and told, just ignore it, push it under the rug, we'll just move on. No. There's no moving on. Then you factor in the excess deaths, the chart exactly. See, excess deaths have gapped up at COVID, but never went back down. If you have a pandemic, you get a gap up in deaths, and then you get a gap back down when it's gone. That did not happen. COVID deaths were replaced by COVID shot deaths. I refuse to call it a vaccine because it is not a vaccine, okay? Just like the flu shot is not a vaccine. But at least in the case of the flu shot, your own body isn't producing any part of the flu virus, okay? So you have all these problems out there that only on the, quote, fringes are doing that because it is the establishment that is tied in with government that would take the liability and possibly even criminal liability, okay? Right? If Fauci purposely suppressed and really pushed not having any type of therapeutics before the COVID shot came out, purposely, even though he knew it worked, that would be criminal negligence, in my opinion. And the reason why he did that is because you needed to suppress. Nothing can work for emergency authorization. Otherwise, the drug has to go through its normal studies and whatever, which this one didn't, and it got emergency. And then they used that stupid Calamari German BioNTech version of the COVID shot to force the mandates on us. And then the rest is history. So when it comes to this issue, yes, I definitely want retribution on this. So sticking with this, RFK Jr. explains how Bill Gates had the foresight to buy over 1 million shares of BioNTech stock before COVID happened. The same week, Bill Gates, who was overseeing the Event 201 simulation, bought 1.1 million shares of BioNTech vaccine, which later became the Pfizer vaccine. He then sold almost all that stock 2 years later at a $242 million profit. The week after that, he announced that the vaccine didn't work. That's what you call a pump and dump scheme. Yeah, here's another scumbag. Now, also keep in mind, this man has no medical training whatsoever, okay, is all run around the world, his foundation, pushing mRNA type technology because he's a globalist and a transhumanist, okay? He's also tied into the Bill Gates Foundation, University of Washington, that came up with that imperial stupid study that showed Trump that convinced him to do the lockdowns. All right, and then the rest is history. All right, this is one class piece of shit, okay? So that's it. So yeah, I'm going to keep harping on this. Other people should be. We need investigations. I hope the state start doing it as well. And now with the whole auto pen thing, maybe we can negate these pardons that Biden did, and we could really go after these people, all right? All you need to do is just get one crack in the wall, and then these people will start wrong, right? So yeah, I want the retribution for this, okay? Constitution thrown out the window, science thrown out the window, and there's no accountability, and there was absolutely deaths, unnecessary deaths that occurred. So, that being said, on the COVID front, let's move on to a little politics, all right? Bag of voice, breaking. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has now promised redistricting. I voted for this. Every Republican governor needs to step it up. Time to get loud. So you got to remember my position on the redistricting. Illinois, 14-3, Democrat to Republican. California, I believe it's 43-9 or 44-9. I forget, I think 44-9, okay? That's less, that's about half of the state's representation of Republicans. I don't expect it to be exactly equal, especially for smaller states, okay? But to have it double, all right? That is not the case with Florida. That is not the case with Texas. These states are just going into line with what the Democrats have already done. And remember, in New York, Hochul had redistrict mid-term, in the mid-term. There's nothing that says you can't. The Constitution says when you have to do it, but doesn't mean you can't do it in between, all right? So if the Democrats, because a lot of these things have been in court and so forth, these redistrictings, if the Democrats decide to drop it to, let's say, under 10% representation and create all these lines, you're going to start violating key concepts of districts by putting, a city block from here with a farm 500 miles away over here, following this road that goes around here, and it just looks insane mess. If they go that far, the Republicans' challenges to those new Democrat maps will have less scrutiny than what they will hold up. They won't hold up as well against scrutiny as what the Republicans are doing now. Okay? Because technically, you're still not supposed to use race for districting. Okay? There are a lot of factors that go into it. Okay? So this is a good move. Republicans can. So basically, if Republicans do this, like they did in Texas and Florida, it gets challenged, I believe it will be held up. If the Democrats try to get that advantage back by gerrymandering even more, I believe those maps will be so insane because they basically squeezed out all the juice they can already legally, and that they won't be able to be held up. So I think we need to continue on this front. All right, so good for Ron DeSantis. All right, so this is from the New York Times, internet prediction based upon the 2030 census. Now, I'm assuming this is just moving and legal migration, okay? I don't think this includes illegal immigration, so keep that in your mind. That's connected in the census. Just like I was in August, sitting on my porch in Tennessee was counted in New York, me and my family entirely. That makes... I'm talking to you from my residence in Tennessee, and you mark me down as New York. Give me a freaking break. Now you know the bureaucracy and who these people are who work for the government. Complete political operatives. And then anybody here, well, it was done under Trump. No, the census itself was done under Biden. The rollout by the bureaucrats was done under Biden, and the implementation was done under Biden. And the other thing is that, do you think Trump is in there checking all these people with stuff? No. With 2 million federal employees, excluding the contractors. Okay, so please, bureaucrats, we all know, called the admin state, deep state, squeeze out whatever they could for the Democrats they could get away with without really, and we should have challenged that in the courts, just like we should have challenged more aggressively these maps in California and Illinois, just like the Democrats do, and go on a wine tour. But anyway, as you see here, Texas +3, Florida +2, Idaho +1, Utah +1, California down 3, Illinois down 2, New York down 1, Rhode Island down 1. That is a 14 net pickup. That's a pickup of Virginia. That would be like flipping Virginia right now red. That means Republicans would only have to win if they get Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. That's it, one more. Okay, so they become a huge advantage, and they will have more of an advantage in the midterm elections off of these stats numbers, okay? Because the electoral votes will be 14, but you're also looking at a net gain of 14 seats. And this is not including what Texas did. So by 2030, you're looking at, let's do the math here, 14 plus the 5, that's already 19. Florida does it, that's 24. Throw in Ohio, a little Missouri, 25, 26, 27 seats advantage, okay? And if the Republicans are not dumb and hold this Trump coalition together, which they're not doing a good job of right now, they could improve that non-Trump midterm turnout. But the Republicans have to do the right thing. So, moving on a little bit. Now, up in Maine here. All right, so I have a little bit of a take on Maine, because there's a lot of people, Republicans, who are very upset with Susan Collins, because she's a rhino, and we all know that she's a rhino. So let's go through this. So Maine Senate, this is from Kalshi, the betting market. Maine Senate odds in a dead heat. 2026 Maine Senate election odds. So first, let's go back to 2020. Trump lost the state. Senator Collins won, I think, like 6 points. She was down in every poll of that, right? Because they didn't get the low propensity voter. Maine 2, Trump won it by 9 points in 2020. They came out. While they were out, they voted for the Democrat for the House. They voted for Susan Collins, and they voted for Trump, for the most part. Okay? And that's how Susan Collins actually outperformed Trump in the state of Maine in 2020. Okay? Now, going back to 2024, Trump on the ballot, Maine 2. Maine 2, Trump carried, I believe, by 13 points. Okay, an increase of 4 points to the right to Trump. But yet Golden, by the way, who is the most moderate Democrat in the House, he won. And we didn't put up some vanilla, crappy rhino Republican. We put up a decent guy. He was an ex-NASCAR driver, popular guy. He still lost. He lost by like a point, half a point. Okay? They do the ranked votes of choice voting in that. That probably hurt him as well. Okay? But my point is, if Trump on the ballot with a decent guy in Maine 2, Trump could not win the state, and we couldn't flip Maine 2. They could throw in Maine 1. That's it. I don't think there's enough juice, because those people who voted for Trump are not coming out. They are either Trumplicans or they are low propensity ex-ancestral Democrats who like Trump for certain issues, the populist issues, but still have a history of Democrat. They're not there. So that's got to be a bottom-up thing for the state of Maine. Okay? So I don't think Susan Collins, no, by the way, there's a rumor she might resign, but we'll see. I think she's the only one who can hold the seat. Now, if it comes down to it, I'd rather have the numbers for the Senate because I don't want the Democrats in control. And this is the best we're going to do in Maine. And Susan Collins has never claimed to be something she's not. She didn't do McCain. Oh, I'm going to run all these ads repealing Obamacare and then vote no, would do the thumbs down and the backstabbing and the scumbagness that McCain was, for example. Okay, and run on these issues like Cornyn's trying to run as a Trump guy now, MAGA person. So my thoughts are very simple. It's like, unfortunately, we got to go with Susan Collins for the state of Maine. I'd rather hold the seat, and this is the best we can. If I thought we could primary and there's a demographic that might in the center shift away to the Democrat, but we could make up the vote somewhere else by increasing turnout in a different demographic, then I'd say let's primary her. But I don't think history in that state just tells me that that's not going to happen. Maine would have to change for other demographical reasons in order to do that. So we got to go with Susan Collins, unfortunately, on this. All right? And she's been helpful in the past in some votes, even though disappointing as she is on others. All right. Moving on. Breaking. President Trump announces that he's working to withhold all federal funding from any sanctuary city. Absolutely. Boom. Love it. And that's the route we should take. We should not be federalizing police forces. DC's a different animal because it's a federal district. In Chicago, we pull the funds. These funds for law enforcement, these funds for whatever, your attorney general's office, all those things. Just pull them. See, just because the money is allocated by Congress, it is the job and the CEO of the Article 2 power of the president to say that these funds are being used correctly. And if they're not being used correctly, he can pull them. Now, certain things will be held in, all these things will be challenged. And there'll be certain funds, it's not one big blob, right? There are certain funds, different programs, and different appropriations. And certain ones will hold up better in court and certain others. Because when this is done, you know the Democrats are going to do lawsuits. So you want to get all your ducks in a row. And that's what it says, working to withhold, right? Which means they're going to find out, we'll do this one, this one. So maybe let's say there are 10 types of funds going to, let's say, Chicago or the state of Illinois. All right? And you do it in 10 different moves, okay? And then, like, they all get challenged, but 7 are upheld and 3 we would have to, that's still a net win. And that's the way you want to approach this, okay? Because it's like, what can I pull because it was appropriated by Congress? What can I not? And what can I get away with? And you have all these different legal angles that you can defend this in courts, especially, because you don't know what kind of activist judge you're going to get and all that. So I think this is the way to go. And you know what? Crime to me is a local issue. Are any specific constitutional rights being violated in there? If there are, and you can prove it, then maybe you have the right to federalize. But as of right now, there isn't. It's just run by shitty Democrats. And they don't care about the black people in South Chicago who still vote Democrat for some reason, although Cook County did shift to the right and to the Trump. Remember, he only lost Illinois by like 8 points. Oh, yeah, but it's 14-3 Dems to Republicans in the House. But anyway, so, yeah, like, that's what you get. Why should the taxpayers of Tennessee be paying for the deployment and for other things for your mistakes in Chicago? No. All right? Like I said, if there's a blatant constitution, like, we're going to suspend all whatever right it is. The Second Amendment, no one can do this, or we're going to suspend your right to go to church or something. That's where the federal government steps in because there's a blatant violation of a constitutional right. So, moving on. All right, a little economics news. This is a Bank of America survey of money managers. All right. 91% net feel that the market is overvalued. Now, what have I said? I said with these move in the markets has been because of the declining price parity, purchasing power of the dollar in the United States. And this increasing in the markets is more driven by that. And it's just an inflated asset class, right? That's why working class people can't afford anything because of interest rates, okay? And they're paying more for basic necessities like food and energy. And then while everybody else, the top 1 or 5%, whatever it is, they can absorb those inflationary costs. They actually net made out because now their house is worth more, their stock portfolio is worth more, etc. Okay, and these assets have been inflated with that. So you got to figure out what is in this number that's inflationary versus actual real data. And because it's driven that, the price to earnings is really high. Now, because of the weakening of the purchasing power, we have to factor that into the valuation of stocks. So maybe they are priced right. I don't know, but you have to keep your mind on that, because I showed you another chart about how these evaluations compare to other past recessions, like the financial crisis, the dot-com bubble, etc. So you got to keep an eye out on this going forward. And I hope people are coming out with more information and data points on how much of this is actually being driven by revenues and profits of the companies versus that inflation. All right. Moving on. Okay. Hungary. Peter Zisharto. Zelensky used Ukraine's national holiday to threaten Hungary. We firmly reject the Ukrainian president's intimidation. We regard sovereignty and territorial integrity as fundamental values of international politics. That is why we respect every country's sovereignty and territorial integrity and expect the same in return. In recent days, Ukraine has carried out serious attacks against our energy supply. An attack on energy security is an attack on sovereignty. A war to which Hungary has nothing to do with can never justify violating our sovereignty. All right, first start off, Ukraine and Hungary have been going back and forth, if you don't know that. If you also don't know, there are about 300,000 ethnic Hungarians who live inside Ukraine, near the Hungarian border by the Carpathian Mountains. They're trying to be conscripted into the Ukrainian army. A lot of them are resisting. Matter of fact, one guy died by a press gang. Hungarian government is very mad about that. So there's the Druzhba pipeline that goes from Russia, and it goes to Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic. Those are 3 landlocked countries, okay, that when the Europeans put the sanctions on the Russian oil, there was a carve-out exception for those 3 countries. They don't have the infrastructure to do it. Otherwise, they would have to get it from basically Croatia's Adriatic coast, set up a rail network, or use trucks. The other thing is that their refineries are set to just be refined for Russian crude. It would take months, from what I understand, and it's expensive to switch those around to the proper crude that you're now importing. So this is a big problem, okay? Because Ukraine has been attacking the pumping station in Bryansk, just over the Ukrainian-Russian border, okay? And they're upset. The other thing is that, which is crazy, Ukraine gets electricity from Hungary and Slovakia. Okay, so a huge chunk of it. They also get like 10% of their diesel fuel from Hungary, because when they get it, they refine it and then they export it. Well, Ukraine needs diesel for a lot of these military things going on right now. So Hungary can really drop the ball, but there's pressure from the Ukraine and the globalists and whatever to just let Ukraine wander around and do what it does, right? Exactly. Now, you don't hear much about this in the West. Of course not, because it shows you the kind of government they are. Because remember, this government, after the coup, has been taken over, just like the deep state, filtered all levels of government by these ultra-nationalists. Okay? And that is where the pressure is. So, basically, so that's going on between... So the foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, is upset about this. Okay? So, because they've been without... There have been knockdowns, and where the supply is stopped. So that threatens all aspects of life in Hungary, their economy, whatever. And Hungary can play ball. We'll shut off that diesel, we'll shut off that electricity. So, So I just wanted to give a brief on what was going on between Hungary and Ukraine right now. All right. Breaking, Elon Musk says that American politicians are receiving kickbacks from Ukraine funding. Of course, Clinton Foundation, #1 donating country, Ukraine, $50 million by far. Coincidence. Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, Coffee Black from the CIA on the board of Burisma. The impeachment came from Ukraine. Okay? Funding. All these senators die hard behind Ukraine insanely. Okay? Wonder what's going on. So Musk knows. He must have came across something. Maybe he has the receipts. I don't know. Okay? But absolutely, there is something going on with this whole situation. And even if it's not like under the table kickbacks, just follow other funds, the investments by American companies in inside Ukraine, before the war, whatever the promises too, and then the whole rebuilding thing that BlackRock is, licking its chops over, etc. So yeah, follow the money and you can figure things out, right? So Elon Musk is touching on a good point here. So I just wanted to share that with you. All right. So here we go. This is scumbag globalist Chancellor Merz of Germany. Welfare state is not sustainable, says German Chancellor. The Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany unexpectedly stated that Germany can no longer afford the existing welfare system. Now, it's giving everybody a heads up, because what's Germany? Well, let's see. They greened themselves to death. They shut down power plants, etc. They deindustrializing. From 2019 to today, their real GDP is down 0.1%. Their GDP has dropped 2 years in a row. And industries are shutting down and moving away. Inflation is high. Energy costs are high. They cut off the Russian gas. So what they're going to do is they're going to increase military spending. Now, they're never going to hit the 5% by 2035, hence why they picked 2035. But they are going to increase, and they're going to financialize it. So that's important, because of the Russia's going to invade Germany. All right, so if they really thought that, don't you think they would be mobilizing right now? No, they didn't. Besides, the Taurus missiles, that many of them got shipped before they can be put together in Ukraine, were destroyed, from what I understand, by Russia already. They tracked it. They have good intelligence. It's just the way it goes. So that's what this scumbag Merz is going to do. He says, we're going to keep the money flowing in Project Ukraine, okay, at the expense of our people and our programs. Now, absolutely, they should up their military and take over their own defense. All big fan of that. Matter of fact, I wish the United States would leave NATO. Okay, but he's doing it for different reasons. Okay, and he's doing it, to keep the whole globalist system going. So, and the good thing is people are catching on, because AfD, and now I've seen 2 polls where AfD is now polling ahead of the CDU, CSU as well, which is also polling ahead of the socialists. So, just wanted to touch on that one. So, moving on to a little battlefield update. So on the left, this is deep state map of the battlefield. Now, this is that north of Pokrovsk breakthrough from like a week and a half ago. Now, Ukraine has deployed the Azov Brigade from Kiev to the... So you could see here on this map on the left, these blue pockets where they broke through some Russian lines and trying to break up this breakthrough, the Ukrainians. But going forward, some other maps are showing here on the right side, this map here. But if you look on the left side of the map on the right, those holes have been kind of plugged up already. As a matter of fact, and Russia looks like they're pushing. So judging by the incoming information, the containment of the Russian strike north of Pokrovsk and the stabilization of the front are going so off plan that Syrskyi, that's head of the armed forces of Ukraine, is urgently pulling several more battalions of the Ukrainian armed forces from the Sumy direction. Just yesterday, the following were withdrawn from there: the 3rd Battalion of the 156th Mechanized Brigade, the 1st and 3rd Battalions of the 33rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, as well as the 2nd Battalion of the 425th Separate Assault Battalion, Skala, along with support units. Now, in the north in Sumy, just to keep in mind, up near that area, whatever, Kupiansk, which is a decent-sized city, is being... Russians are launching offensive. Now they're pulling troops from the northern areas. They're putting pressure there. Same thing's happening in Konstantinivka, just north of Pokrovsk, which I'll get to in a second. And that is pushing them. Now, from what I understand, the Russians have actually only 2 kilometers from a major supply route to the city of Kharkiv, which is one of the, I think, the third or fourth most populous city inside Ukraine. All right, so it looks like Ukraine's just bleeding more and more manpower here and being attrited to death. And by the way, I know you saw the leak with the hack, that basically confirmed that 1.7 million Ukrainians are dead or missing. One of the reasons why it's being so suppressed, because I think people in the West, if they knew the true numbers, would want this war to end. And the second thing is that Ukraine has to make lots of payments to these families under Ukrainian law right now, and they don't want to do it. So thought I'd share that with you as well. So now this is a map, okay, of the rest of Donetsk. All right. So if you look at the map on the bottom, okay, all right, that little carve out, that little bulge, that's Pokrovsk. okay? And you can see the red mark just above it in the north, that's been the Russian breakthrough. Now to that next, right where that little first black area to the north of Pokrovsk to the right, that's where Konstantinivka is, okay? And then just north of that are the two cities, Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Those are like those two big black marks over on the top there, okay? Now if you see the blue line is the rest of is the border of Donetsk administrative border. That's the rest of Donetsk. That's all that's left. So if they take Pokrovsk, all right, now that line is, then they push out, there's the line there. And then Konstantinivka falls. Now Konstantinivka is like a tri-city area. It's the smallest of the three with Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. And keep in mind, Sloviansk and Kramatorsk was the birthplace of the separatist movement after the coup in 2014. Okay? So it's a symbolic place as well. All right? So now those yellow lines are the Ukrainian fortifications. This is why Ukraine is doing this. Okay? And this is also why Russia doesn't want a ceasefire. Because even a month after this area falls, there are no more Ukrainian fortifications. It is open farmland, hard to defend, basically to the Dnieper River. Okay? And that's really what the issue is here for the Ukrainian point of view and defense. Why they want because they could spend a month building up new fortifications really quick during that ceasefire. And Russia doesn't want to do that because this. So you see, Russia's getting Donetsk. So what? It's not for Ukraine not to compromise. You're losing it anyway. So do it by not killing more of your people. Okay? And then Russia will demand more land because they're not going to give up the land they did. Okay? I think it's slightly possible some of the areas in the north that they're using as buffer zones that they really didn't want. So it had nothing to do with this war. Okay? Now also in Slovansk and Kramatorsk area, there's complete Russian fire control over the highways and supply routes coming in. And you could see it's open getting troops here. So they're just pummeling it with ISR, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, strike systems, airstrikes. They're using more of the glide bombs now because they have air superiority. And Ukraine is in a bad spot here. Okay, so once Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka fall, most of these defensives here in the southern part, they're going to have to withdraw. Russia will focus on Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. And my bet is actually pincer from the north and go around along the blue administrative line, and then pincer from Konstantinivka and the breakthrough up to the north and pincer, and then they have the rest of Donetsk. Okay, and then they can focus on that last 25% of Zaporozhye where they're pushing as well a little bit. And they're pushing in Dnipro-Petrovsk, which is to the west of this map and to the north of Zaporizhzhia. They already have all of Lugansk. So this could be done by before winter, maybe? All right? And if it's the difference, I think Russia would drive it a little bit into where the winter's not that harsh yet, if it makes the difference of controlling this. Maybe like deep in October, early November. I think that's possible. But who knows? And with the manpower issues, and that these are like the last of the strategic reserves. Okay, because if they had more to send from Kiev, they wouldn't have pulled them from Sumy, right? Which is weakening the Sumy line. They didn't. The Azov Brigade is all they had left. That's their strategic reserve. There's nothing behind them. So I don't know what Ukraine is doing and not making these deals. But it is what it is, folks. So anyway, that's my video for this morning. I'm going to keep an eye on the battlefield in Pokrovsk. Any news coming on, any other economic news, trade deals coming out, whatever. On the immigration front, things in Europe. We have like Dutch elections, a couple more coming up. I'm starting to look at the polling there. As we get closer, I'll be putting in my videos and posting about it. But you can follow me on my X at Patriot Planner 1 or my Getter at Patriot Planner. And if you like this video, which I hope you did, because I enjoyed it too, please follow, like, and share. All right, thank you. Enjoy your week. And I should put out another video probably on Friday is what I'm planning. All right, have a good week.